This is Mirabella's kitchen, and today I'm making chocolate pudding pie. This is my favorite dessert from the holidays growing up, and since moving across the country, I've learned how to make it myself. I normally use a pre-baked pie crust though, and today I'm going to show you guys my first ever attempt at making pie crust. So I will link the recipe in the description, and I'm going to measure all my dry ingredients in grams, but I'll convert also in the description. I start by measuring 225 grams of all-purpose flour, 15 grams of sugar, 4 grams of Diamond Crystal coarse kosher salt. The brand is specific. Don't be a rookie like I almost was and try to pour directly from a box of salt ever. Use a bowl. I whisk everything together until it's nice and friendly and homogeneous, and I take 2 sticks of unsalted butter and cut it into small 1/2 inch or so cubes. I coat those cubes in the dry mixture, and I take each individual cube of butter and I squeeze it between my fingers. I cover the dry mixture with some cold water, 1/2 cup, and I start to knead everything into the pie dough. And I'm gonna knead it until it is sphere-like in look. And ta-da! I generously flour my work surface, and I start to roll the dough out. I had an issue. I let my dough get too warm. So the ideal temperature for this dough is 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So my dough started to stick to everything, fall apart, and I took it and put it back in the fridge in a ball. And once that had cooled down, I generously flour everything again, and I try to roll the dough out. So this is enough dough to make 2 pie crusts. I like flipping it every couple rolls. I found it helpful. So I roll it into a big rectangular-ish shape, and then I fold it in on itself into 3 pieces, and I fold it again into a book-like shape, and I cut it in half with a bench scraper. I'm going to save the other half of the pie crust for a different meal. And now I'm going to roll out this pie crust. I didn't flour my rolling pin enough, so it's stuck again. I roll this set of dough out into a circular-like shape because we're going to mold it to the pie dish. I use a lot of flour to make sure nothing sticks, and I just brush off the excess with a brush. I gently lower the pie dough over the pie dish and start to mold it into the dish. I cut off until it's 1/4 of an inch of just excess hanging off the side of the pie lip, and I fold it in on itself to make the crust. I would do a little more if you want to crimp and put a design in. And I cover it with some plastic wrap, and I place it in the fridge for at least 2 hours. I want the dough to chill, to let the gluten relax. I let it cool overnight. And now I'm going to blind bake the pie crust. A blind bake is when you put a weight into the pie crust and you bake it, because you're going to use it for a custard, something you don't need to bake the crust for, with the interior. And so I use aluminum foil. I line the interior of the pie crust with it, and I use sugar as my weight. So once it's nice and full of sugar, I put it into a preheated oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and I let it cook for 60 minutes. After an hour, I remove it, and I'm going to remove the sugar from the interior of the pie. And look at how nice and golden it is. And I'm going to save that sugar for other means. You can still use it. It's just nice and toasted. I start making the chocolate pudding, and I made the mistake of preheating my pan and then adding all the dry ingredients. Everything clumped up and started cooking, and I could not save it. But I have a solution. I took an exterior bowl. You can just use a saucepan, and I take 1/2 cup of cocoa powder, 1/4 cup of cornstarch, 1.5 cups of sugar. I use the toasted sugar from the weight, and 1/2 teaspoon of coarse kosher salt. I whisk that all together, and then I'm going to add the wet ingredients. So I add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, 3 egg yolks, and I'm using 2 total cups of whole milk, but I'm going to add just a little bit to initially mix everything together. I want to whisk everything so it's relatively smooth, and I like to go very slowly, taking from the edges with the whisk to add all the dry ingredients. I take a medium-sized saucepan, I add the mixture into it, and I put it over medium to medium-high heat. I like to go right between. I gradually add the rest of the milk, and then I whisk continuously. It feels like it takes forever. I mean, it's a high heat, your arm's getting warm, and it takes about 5 to 10 minutes before the cornstarch is activated and starts to thicken. It will be thin, 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 and then suddenly it starts getting thick, it's getting frothy, and you know you're almost there. And see, that's when you can tell it's changed. So when it thickens up, I continuously beat it for a little longer to make sure that all the lumps are out until it's this nice dark chocolate brown. I have the pie crust that has been cooling for at least 30 minutes, and I add the chocolate pudding into the interior of the pie crust. I'm also going to let that sit and cool down for a little while, probably 20 minutes or so. It's so pretty. I like to use wax paper to cover the pudding before putting the pie into the fridge to let the interior continue to set. I don't have a reason, it's just what my mom always did. Maybe there's some science behind it. I let it set in the fridge for half a day. And here's the unveiling. It's so beautiful and good that it caused my camera to stall out. And that's chocolate pudding pie. Thanks for joining me today. Happy Thanksgiving. I make new videos on cooking every Wednesday. Please support me on Patreon and on Facebook at Mirabella's Kitchen.